Well, hello again, and for those of you that are finding this video for the first time, this is the second in several different series here about this reopening plan. And I know for us, reopening, we're not sure what that's going to look like. And maybe you're watching this here in June, maybe you're watching it in August. But the idea with this reopening is how do we plan for a bit of an unknowns? And of course, we have folks that are working on the operationalizing of how far we're going to be from each other, our hand cleaning, the masks that we're going to wear. I don't want to focus in on that. I want to focus in on things that we've learned, things that were prior to the pandemic that we could apply, and everything in between, because we know when we go back to school, there's going to be some social distancing. There's going to be some new normal. It's going to be different from the fall of 2019. We know that a lot of education is going to take place brick and mortar, unlike that suddenness for it taking place at home. And we know that there's going to be elements of digital solutions. Why? Well, because we're probably not going to be able to see our students fully 5 days a week during our traditional time. So how do we supplement that? How do we support that? Well, we can do that through a blended learning model where our students are going online to be able to complete lessons, complete activities, watch videos, get prepared for or enriched after, do drill, do practice, and a host of other things. And yes, I'm not talking fully online the way we did March, April, May, and for some of us into June. No, I'm not talking about that. I'm talking about this blended learning model that we referred to in their opening video, and I want to reinforce again that while we have a number of different things going on for the fall, and we're not exactly sure what they're going to look like, we can learn from the past with a blended learning model. And with that, it could be a station rotation, it could be flex, it could be flipped, and a host of other things. And so I want to urge us to reflect on that and prepare for that come the fall. Now, as we look into the fall, there's two technologies I want to emphasize in this segment. I want to emphasize content management systems and learning management systems. Now, we used a variety of different technology tools over the last several months in this fully online, sudden going from face to face, and maybe we had a week of planning, maybe we had 2 weeks of planning, maybe we were introduced to some tools, maybe we were unfamiliar with other tools. But as we go forward in this planning, one of the elements that will be a mainstay to us will be content management systems. Now, several of you have adopted maybe Khan Academy. Others have adopted IXL or Connections Academy or K-12 Incorporated or Study Island or a host of other things. Now, and maybe some of you are going to be exploring others, Brain Pop, et cetera, et cetera. Now, for me, content management systems, the difference there, and to align with the industry to a degree, are going to be systems that offer, first of all, alignment to standards. So for example, in IXL, I could actually go into IXL, and here's one in the area of math, and I could connect specific to a standard, specific to an area like division fluency or numbers and comparing. I can then click on a specific lesson, and then that lesson would align to like division facts for 2, 3, 4, 5, and 10 under division fluency. So very specific things. I'll get the lesson, I'll get an assessment, I'll get data on that, and then a progression for what the student should do next. That's the beauty of a lot of content management systems. Now, let's go with IXL for a moment. So here I am in the area of math. I've selected one of those lessons, and honestly, the lesson is more of an assessment. And that, okay, I have a chance to drill and practice, or practice and drill, or however you want to call it. And so here I am giving you an opportunity to select which one in terms of those numbers. I get to drag that into the box and then submit. And then from there, I'm giving as an educator basically information. It can monitor how the child's doing. I get an understanding of through selection of multiple choice questions. Maybe there's some vocabulary elements if I'm doing social studies or science or English language arts, although IXL is primarily math. But it's all in the area of question and answer, question and answer. And so, of course, I also have the progress monitoring, so I can see a dashboard to see how the child's done and see where they're having strengths, where they're potentially having weaknesses, and not only the child, but I can take a look at a group of children or the entire classroom or across my classrooms. So the content management system is fairly rich. Now, I'm mentioning IXL as an example because, of course, there's several other out here, okay? But IXL, and one of the things I think we need to do, and this is just an illustration with IXL, but one of the things we need to do in our planning is realize, what does that content management system do? I could look at IXL and say, oh my gosh, it covers all these different areas related to the standards, related to specific aspects of math instruction I need to cover on 3rd grade. But IXL as a system, as a content management system, is not meant for original instruction. It's meant for that drill and practice right now. So as I do some planning, as I do some designing in that content management system, I need to appreciate that. Just like in terms of BrainPop, BrainPop itself is not necessarily a full-blown content management system, but for those of us familiar with it, BrainPop offers some phenomenal videos to offer context, to make connections as I get into a lesson, or maybe reinforce, but I would argue getting into a lesson. Where IXL is more, I get to drill and practice after I've been introduced to a concept. So appreciation what the content management system does, what it provides, what it doesn't do is one of our critical skills. Now I've seen content management systems used in blended learning quite well, but I've also seen them used inappropriately. Seen, for example, IXL as, well, this is the primary instruction, and it's like it doesn't actually offer primary instruction the way the Khan Academy does. It offers a phenomenal place to drill and practice. So now we also have our learning management systems. And I'm briefly touching upon both of these. But as we do some of our planning, as we do some of our designing, we need to think of some of those digital tools that our students might use in the brick and mortar or at home, and we need to really reconsider them. And if you're thinking, well, wait, Sean, I'm having difficulty kind of conceptualizing this, let's kind of give an example. And that is, so I'm sitting in class, I'm teaching fourth grade, and because of social distancing, I don't have all my 25 or 30 students at once. I'm getting some on Monday, some on Tuesday, maybe half day, some on Thursday, et cetera, et cetera. What's happening to those students the rest of the time? Well, they may stay in the brick and mortar, but they may go to now an aide that does some independent work with them. And me as the instructor, I'm guiding that from afar. Well, in the blended learning, that's exactly what we've done in the past. And that guidance might be through some content management or learning management components. So we as instructors need to make that decision so we can facilitate that with that teacher aide, with that additional adult that's going to facilitate that when we're not face-to-face with our children. Because of course we can't be face-to-face with students and then another part of our class be remote with them at the same time. That's impossible. And I don't think we want to be video conferencing in students when we're teaching something to a large class of, let's say, 15 social distance and 10 others zooming in. That's just not going to be effective. We need to provide some independent, personalized learning. And by the way, they may be at home, and the same thing in terms of content and learning management systems, how are we going to use them? Now, I've had this slide up here with the learning management systems. Many of us have used a variety of different ones. And, for lack of a better term, they're containers. They're providing places for us to allow for us to provide resources and other educational components. And let's take a look at Google Classroom. It's beyond a container in that just simply a box. It offers so much more. And I'll just use Google Classroom as an example. The beauty of using a learning management system is, yes, I get to put links of videos I've found. I get to upload videos I've created. I get to make connections to the digital book we're using. I get to organize things so students don't get lost, and we'll talk about that in just a moment. But the beauty also is I have a central location for internal and external communication. So I don't have to worry about that student that gets lost with, wait, I tried to find that email. Where is it? Well, it's in my Google Classroom through my Gmail. Wait, what does the calendar say about this? Well, it's in my Google Classroom. That parent that's trying to get connected with, wait, I missed that email. Where is that? It's in the Google Classroom. So I go there and everything's centralized there for me to be able to access. Now, does that mean I can't use Seesaw and some other resources that I've created to make connections to? No, not at all. I can use those. I just use those within the container in that I branch out from the container, but this is my organizer. And by the way, with the variety of folks we're going to have to work with in the blended environment or the hybrid or the personalized or however we want to call it going forward into the fall, it's great to have things all centralized within a container, Blackboard, Schoology, Google Classroom, etc., because there's a good chance we'll still be engaging our parents at a higher level than we did fall of 19. They'll be higher than fall of 20, but they may not be engaged at the level we engaged them in the spring of 20, where we over-relied on them, but they'll still be involved. How are we going to communicate with them? What about that adult in the environment that maybe is an aide, maybe is a support person that's also facilitating part of our instruction? Now, we also know learning management systems can help engage individuals. So for example, our instruction, we have embedded video to help facilitate things. We organize our assignments so that students are better understanding what the directions are, better understanding the sequence of things. We are organizing things for them, especially a lot of our students that have that poor executive function control skills. And we've actually experienced a lot of students that don't prioritize well, have problems with distractions, have problems with attention, the list goes on. We've experienced that over the last 3 months, 4 months in the online learning environment, and we've relied on the parent or the adult in the home to help facilitate that. The management system can help facilitate that as well. We can embed feedback, and students want that feedback. They can see it aligned with the assignment that they submitted and everything else. So there's a lot of engagement going on there. And then Google Classroom also allows for a lot of management, as I mentioned before. So one of the things is if I use something like Google Forms, which of course is part of the Google Suite, it's automatically going to put into a dashboard for my data to make a connection for. I can upload information for it's organized so that, again, it's sequenced as I organize it, as I put it in. I can post things, and there's an automaticity to it in terms of the students are posting, I automatically get it. I don't have to worry about did they put it in the right spot. The assignment had only one spot. I know exactly where to go. Student may not know where they put it, but they don't have to worry about that. I organized it, so as long as you completed it, you may not even have to upload. You just had to complete it, and it automatically saved. A lot of management plus options there for us to consider in those Google Classroom and other learning management systems. And then lastly, a lot of us looked at that remote learning through video conferencing. And so we use video conferencing a lot of different ways, and potentially we abused it. Maybe we over-relied on that. Well, we lecture face-to-face, we're going to lecture remotely, and we found out that, well, getting students to be engaged, turning on that camera, getting them to be there, getting them to answer questions, that was a little difficult remotely. So also that reflection that this technology is not going away. How do we use it though? So maybe it's that we're going to have some virtual office hours now Wednesday evenings. And at the elementary level, those virtual office hours might be for that parent at home, that learning coach, grandma, grandpa, to further connect with them, to further reinforce some of the things we're doing face-to-face or what's happening when they do blended learning in the gymnasium or in the music room or in that pod area when they're not with me face-to-face because of the social distancing. Or maybe it's that reinforcement of what we'd like you to do over the weekend, if at all possible, in preparation. So we're doing video conferencing for video office hours. We're having specific one-on-ones with some of our students that normally we would be able to do during the academic day, but because we don't have the time, maybe we're scheduling some of those to do some of the additional support that we would normally do maybe at the high school level, where, hey, come to me in the first thing in the morning or come to me after class. We don't have that option now, so instead we're giving virtual office hours for our students as well. And then planning professionally. Many of us have found that video conferencing can be very, very effective in planning. And so now instead of trying to find time, well, we'll still have to find time, but finding that space, getting together, etc. Well, I can pop onto my camera for 5 minutes. Hey, how'd that lesson go? Problem solve a little bit. And now I'm collaborating, I'm connecting, I'm consulting much more regularly, which of course, with many moving parts and many moving people, it's going to be critical going forward in this new planning, this reopening. So let's take a pause here. But with this idea, well, actually, as we take a pause here, let's ask a few questions. So as we go into this new normal, okay, this new normal, we're not exactly sure what it's going to look like in the classroom. We're not exactly sure what's going to be in terms of the home. We know there's probably going to be an element of a heightened aspect of home being still part of the learning experience, much more so than the fall of 19, here in the fall of 20. But also what's going to happen in the classrooms, we mentioned we don't know how to operationalize it. So some questions to me that are critical for us to consider, and then we'll take a pause here, will be, again, what do we complete face-to-face? What is it that we're going to focus in on when we have the students with us? And again, those are going to be probably our essential big ideas. Those are going to be things instructionally we don't believe we can do well digitally, be it synchronously or asynchronously. And of course, synchronously would be the fact that we're doing it live, connected with the individual. But live doesn't necessarily mean to be video conference. It could be the fact that we're all on the same Google Doc together or whatever. But we're probably not going to have that opportunity. So what is it we do face-to-face in terms of instruction there? And then what do we do in the blended learning environment? What would work well with the digital components? What would work well with some independent, personalized, self-paced learning? What digital tools are we going to utilize for that? Many of us have realized we can screencastify or screencast as I'm doing right here. The power of that, we can outline our breadcrumbs, meaning this is what we want you to do going into this learning experience. This is what we want you to review. Oh, by the way, I'm going to use this technology for some more interactive collaboration where you get on Padlet and folks are on there live offering comments. And of course, a big question is how are we going to use the power of the learning coach at home, that be the adult at the home. How are we going to use the power of our professionals that we're interacting with, be it our content-related peers, maybe a fellow English teacher or fellow math teacher, but also potentially the paraeducator or the aide or the additional instruction assistants that are being hired that I'm hearing more and more about districts, be able to facilitate this blended learning. We're going to need to interact with them on behavior, engagement, facilitating our instructions, things of that nature. So those are some things to reflect on as we go forward. And I'm going to branch off next with some ideas at the elementary level to be thinking of that in respect to what we can learn from the past, not only from the last the several months in terms of the pandemic, but prior to that in blended and online learning, particularly in the role of the learning coach. And then we're also going to look at it from a design and planning perspective as well. So hope this was helpful. Hope this got you thinking a little bit. And we'll connect back here with version or part 3. Specifically, part 3 will focus in on that aspect of using the learning coach, who of course can be the professional in the building, as well as the adult at home to facilitate some of this blended hybrid personalized learning. Thanks.